Same with creativity, and I feel like as a child, we definitely are very creative and
Yeah.
curious. And children all have it. They turn the most random sheet into a big house in their idea, or a fort, or a fork, whatever it is. And so, but we lose it. But we definitely have both creativity and curiosity.
Hello, welcome to today's episode of Creativity Boost podcast. Today, I have with me a doctor and a master in research who has done a very profound work in uncovering some hidden secrets about wisdom. Her name is Dr. Laura, and it's a pleasure to bring her before you today. Hi, Dr. Laura, how you doing?
I'm good. Thank you for having me.
Wow, it's super exciting to have you in the studio today. I had a chance to get your most recent book, Common Wisdom, and I've been taking a peek at it just this morning, and I found it really, really great. Such a profound work that you did there. I must really, really say that was an awesome job. So, what inspired your work on Common Wisdom? Do you care to share with the audience?
So it's funny because I was battling some health challenges, and I felt like having an MD in many ways was because I have one. It was a curse. I felt like physicians were very stuck in their ways of how to look at things and what it was and treatments and so I was like, well, who has a wider lens? Who is more curious about other things and looks outside the box? And that's where I thought the wise were. Then I looked into wisdom, and I'm like, wait. So wisdom is discussed in all the major religions, and these famous people talk about wisdom, but yet there's no clear way. We don't know what it is. So that's when I was like, well, I'm a researcher. I've created many projects and I can create this project. So I hired a research assistant and a marketing specialist. We posted it all over the internet. And I found 60 wise individuals across North America. So it was mainly US and some Canada as well. And that's when I interviewed them. And based on those interviews, I came up with the 8 elements of wisdom.
Wow. So, in your research, you came up with some discoveries and you captured them in 8 fundamental elements. Can you tell us what those 8 elements are about?
So, in order of what's more common was, so I'll say them to you, was resilience, kindness, positivity, spirituality, humility, tolerance, creativity, and curiosity. Now, the reason I say order, I think it's important for everyone to realize all of them are important. And order was, ironically, a lot of the people we talked to had overcome a really bad challenge in life. And so resilience ended up being the first one. But of all the 60 people I interviewed, only one had all 8. So we assigned different of the elements. Most people had 2 to 3 to 5, but only one person had all 8.
Okay, that's interesting. You mentioned a couple of them: resilience, tolerance, spirituality, creativity, curiosity, and a bunch of others. So, do you want us to deep dive into one or more of them? For me, the one that interested me most was the one on creativity, but I'll leave that for later. But do you want to tell us about some of these elements and why they are important? For example, resilience, what does it have to do with wisdom?
So I think with resilience, the idea is whatever happens in life, and it's going to happen, is there for you. It's happening for you, not to you. And you don't give up. You kind of just plow through, and you realize whatever challenge it is, it's gonna come out the other end with something to teach you. And I've thought about this. I'm like, resilience is something a lot of them had because they were able to overcome such a difficult event in their life. They didn't give up. They just went through it. Kindness was the one that was the next one, and that was what was very interesting and surprising to me because I'm a Middle Eastern, and kindness in the Middle East is not something that is respected. It's expected to be tough and strong and not kind. Kindness is viewed as weakness. And so the third element was positivity, and this is why I feel like they're all related and they're all connected. And
Yeah.
positivity is the third element, and that's looking at everything that happens in a positive way, and it takes practice. It's not just gonna happen overnight. It takes like the idea that this happened. What's the positive side of this, or what? Why? So, and next one, spirituality. It's very interesting for me as a scientist who was not very spiritual before. It was very interesting that they really did believe in the higher power, and on top of that, some did not know, did not understand it, and some felt like they had no control over anything they did, and it was all the higher power. And then humility, as I mentioned in my book, I talked to a lot of people who had been very successful in their life. And yet they weren't, that was not important to them. And it didn't make them feel big to make others feel small. And they didn't talk about that at all. And tolerance, and what made up tolerance was not just what we know as racial and religious, being open minded to those. It was more of the, how you treat people and how you think about other cultures, other mindsets, everything. So, and then creativity and curiosity. First of all, the last element, I feel like curiosity is the foundation to all of wisdom. And I feel like it's a foundation of all of the elements. And same with creativity. And I feel like as a child, we definitely are very creative and
Yeah.
curious. And children all have it. They turn the most random sheet into a big house in their idea, or a fort, or a fork, whatever it is. And so, but we lose it. But we definitely have both creativity and curiosity.
Wow, that's amazing. Now, talking about creativity, I've come to discover that a lot of people, like you said, they have creativity innate in them, but they have not been able to bring it out. They've not been able to manifest it. And part of the reason why that is because they are not aware, they are not conscious of that side of them, and that is in my understanding, or in my opinion, a lack of wisdom. So what can you say about this, and how can people who have this challenge be able to identify this problem and solve it?
I think that, with creativity, I think, first of all, I think it's really important. We're so quick to put people into boxes, right? To say, oh, you're an artist, you're very creative, and you're not. So you're not creative. And that's not how it is. You can be creative in anything, and we all have it. So I think it's important to say, well, you have it, who you are as a person, how you dress, how you eat, how you talk, all of it is creative. It's special to you. Now, can you build on it? Of course. But saying something to yourself, oh, I'm not creative, I think everyone is. And one thing we found with the people I interviewed were they did not wear one hat of, oh, I do this. They like to do many different things. So they were also very creative in the life they lived. And not just how they thought, but also the life they lived. So I think with the creativity, I think the biggest thing is telling everyone they have it in them. It's part of who they are as a human being. And it's something a computer does not have. It's something we do. and it's something that can set you apart, and it takes practice for you to realize it too.
Wow, that's amazing. So now you had the opportunity to talk with 60 different people that you classify as wise people. Apart from all the things that you've documented in your book, can you tell me about some of the things you also observed that you may not have documented in your book, maybe for the lack of time and space?
It's funny because these people did not know each other, and
Wow.
so what I did notice is after around 20 people, I heard a lot of the same things, and
Wow.
the idea was it's okay, it'll be okay, life is going to be okay. Nothing to be worried about. Just they had this peace about them. They had this happiness, this inner strength, I would say. So this inner happiness too, and contentment. And that's why I talk about it being a part of a meaningful life. And that's something I didn't talk about per se, but that's something they'll have. But the part of me that's a scientist was not happy with doing just 20 interviews. So I kept going, and that's when we went to 60.
Yeah. Wow, that's great. Now, talking about your choice of subject, wisdom, for me, I find that very compelling because wisdom is not something we hear around town nowadays. In ancient times or in years before now, wisdom used to be a very
Respect.
interesting topic people were interested in. But I've come to observe and discover that in recent times, nobody cares about that subject. Why do you think wisdom is something that should be in the front burner now as a subject of discourse?
Well, it's funny because now I feel like more than ever we need it. With the focus on social media, the internet, and wisdom, and we lack wisdom. People lack it, and the focus on being younger, trying to look younger. And the reality is, as someone ages, they gain wisdom. So, but we need more wisdom, and it's not respected. And hence, why my topic is not a sexy topic. But I think that a way to phrase it or think about it is having wisdom or wanting wisdom is wanting a more meaningful, deep, thoughtful. It's like a pseudonym for having a more fulfilled life and being more happy with yourself. So it's all of those put together. So wisdom kind of accompanies, like it's a description of all of those elements.
Wow, that's profound. So, having said what you said, what can you say one who has discovered that they actually need wisdom? What can such a person do to develop that wisdom in them?
It's funny you say that. Someone read the book and emailed me and said, I think I am very intelligent, but I'm not very wise. And I said to him, the goal of the book is not for you to feel, oh, I'm not wise. I think the goal of the book is to say, okay, I'm strong in this, but I'm not strong in this. Or I'm not very spiritual, let me become spiritual. Or I'm not humble, I have showed off before, let me become more humble. Or it's just the goal is for you to say, these are the 8 elements. I'm good at this, but I'm not good at this, and that's how I can focus on it. So that's the problem is I don't want someone to think, oh, okay, I have to master all 8. It's not going to happen. As I said, I interviewed 60 people and only one person had all 8. What will happen is what I can see a person reading the book and saying, oh, I need to be kinder, or I need to be this. So that's what I'm hoping will happen.
Yeah, and you said it so rightly, because wisdom is something that can be developed. In fact, the Bible says wisdom is the principal thing, therefore get wisdom, and in all thy getting, get understanding. So you can actually get wisdom, you can procure wisdom, you can develop yourself to be more wise. And one of the ways to do that is by reading books like this that helps you in simple way understand this concept that looks abstract. You see, one of the reasons I think people are not that interested in the subject of wisdom is because it appears abstract, right? But it can be tangible if you give it attention. It can become real to you, it can become manifested to you. And when you have wisdom, it manifests itself in creativity. And that's why I'm really, really fascinated by your book, because wisdom is insight into reality, your ability to see the future and act accordingly and create a solution and solve a problem even before people discover they have a problem. That is wisdom, and that can turn you into a phenomenon if you hone into that part of yourself. Now, that is that for that. I have a question that I would like to bring to your awareness, because over the years, when I've had discussions around the subject of wisdom, a theme has always come out, and that theme is people tend to think that wisdom is against science or science is against wisdom. And you being a scientist, a researcher, someone who has value for empirical data, someone who has studied science in its depth, what can you say about that? Is that true? Why do people have that conflict, and is there any truth to that?
I think the truth to that comes from they're not able to quantify it. Scientists like to measure things, and if they can't see it, it doesn't exist. And that's probably why scientists don't believe in a higher power, and that is why scientists, just only want to touch and feel and measure and see things that are there. Wisdom does not involve any of that, and that it is something that's not tangible. It is something that takes time, and I would probably say the scientists, knowing other people in my profession, they don't really value it as much as you would think, and they don't. Because it's not something they can't be measured, and prior to what I found, it hasn't been measured. It hasn't really been looked at or important. So I think it's more of thinking outside the box. They don't think outside the box. Scientists don't want to because they don't see it. So anyways, I think it's a hard step to go over, but it's something that's probably why when people see me having done this work, they're like, wait a second, you are a researcher and you looked at wisdom. How did the two go hand in hand?
Absolutely. In fact, that was the first thing that captivated me about you when I met you. Like, how does a scientist become so captivated, or how does a scientist become so interested in a subject that is so abstract, in a subject that does not have too much of empirical data around, and then you choose to trace it using the same scientific method of using data? Because even if we think that wisdom is abstract, I like the approach you use. You actually talk to people that have had experience or that have experienced wisdom, and that way you are able to track the data even if there's no hardcore data somewhere. People are the best data points that you can find, and if you're able to talk to someone who has had an experience and the person can confirm to you that this thing is real to me, then I think that's a good place to start. So that's the first thing that really captivated me when I met you. So how did you navigate the challenges with these different constructs of society, like you mentioned? Like, how can you, being a scientist, be interested in this abstract stuff? How did you navigate that challenge? Because I believe that must have been a challenge for you too, that you needed to deal with.
So when you design any project, you have to see what was done beforehand. And the journals of sociology and psychology and geriatrics looked at wisdom, and that's where they found out that wait, the only people who can identify wisdom are the wise, are other humans. No tests, no questionnaire, nothing really can do it. Even though there
Wow.
were many questionnaires, they couldn't do it. And then they also found that wisdom has an inverse U relationship with age, and that those that were wisest are in their 50s, 60s, and 70s. And that's why I modeled the project for age 50 to 79. And the fact that I am a physician, the fact that I am a scientist kind of gave me the credibility to interview people. So in a way, they were like, "Sure, you can talk to me. You know, you sure, I would love to talk to you and tell you." And so that actually opened the door. I wasn't some random person on the street saying, "Oh, I'm going to talk to you," but I had some credibility. So now I'm sure people who are in science or traditional physicians are probably like, "What? She created this and she did what?" I'm sure they're wondering how did this happen? But outside of them, I feel like it's been an okay experience. It's been great.
Wow. Now, you said something about the inverse U relationship between wisdom and age, and I'm particularly interested in the connection between wisdom and age because I've come to discover that gray hair is not necessarily a symbol of wisdom like some people would think. I also am a strong believer of the fact that you don't need to be old to have wisdom. You can procure wisdom at a young age. You can get wisdom. You can get wisdom at a young age. You can discover wisdom at a young age. So, what do you have to say about this relationship?
Look, I agree with you. I mean, I'm sure there are people in their 30s, 20s, 30s, 40s who have wisdom. But I think the majority, or we see the most, in the age 50, 60, 70. I do agree also that just because someone is older does not mean they're wiser. We have seen plenty of people who are older who don't make good decisions, who
Yeah.
are not entirely wiser in what they say, how they act, where they do, right? So I think wisdom is, and it's funny because it's not common to be wise. I mean, it wasn't easy to find the 60 people, and it didn't just happen. You know, these were like a random person was like, "Oh, I went to college with this person," or "Oh, I know someone," or it was not easy.
Okay, so one thing I've come to discover about wisdom is that wisdom can also help you attract wealth, like riches, like money. So, could you say anything about the financial status of the people you interviewed? Did you find any pattern about their finances?
I
I'd like to know about that.
I did not ask them about finances. I did not look into that. I think
Okay.
what I have found is people who are wiser often may make better decisions. And
Yeah.
so they may pursue things that would lead to more success or more financial success because of that. So, but no, we did not investigate wealth.
Okay. Cool. The reason I asked that is because I'm a believer in scripture, and the Bible says riches and honor comes with wisdom. So I wanted to figure out or ask if that part of your research, if that part of wisdom was covered in your research. Thank you for clarifying that. Now, so what do you have to say about wisdom now that you've done this research? What has it done for you? Has it done anything to you? What has it done in you?
I think what it has highlighted for me was the importance of different attributes. As I said, kindness was not something I cared about, but now it's more important than ever, and I see it more because my husband is very kind, and I see like just the interaction he has and I have with the kids very different. And he's just a kind person. Like, he on a regular basis may say things that are different than what I say. Or I think spirituality, do I believe more is attributed to a divine source than we think? Yes. But do I see people discount it? No. I mean, yes, as well. They discount it. They seldom think it's part of anything. They seldom think it's involved, but I believe it is. So I feel like the 8 elements have made me think twice about them, and they've also made me maybe want to focus more on them too.
Wow, that's amazing. For me, whenever I do a creative project, beyond the impact it makes on people, I've come to discover that it also makes an impact on me. And for me, that's the biggest benefit in manifesting creativity, in writing a book, in creating a product, in inventing some machine, or in cooking a creative meal, or doing some art. It's what it does for me, or to me. And so just hearing you share on how that also transformed your mind and put you on a higher plane in your reasoning is so refreshing. And so what would you say for someone who wants to figure something abstract out, just like you have figured, at least to an extent, you figured out wisdom by talking to these people? Do you have a framework that someone who wants to figure something out, something that is not tangible, something that looks abstract out, what would you say would be a good framework that that person can, use?
So you're asking about the framework.
Yeah.
And I think it's a good framework for approaching anything in life is being open to it and being very, like, it can vary, whatever it is, whether it's getting a cup of coffee or interacting with someone. It's just being open to the experience and realizing it may be a boring encounter, or I may learn something from it. It may change me. And as you said, I definitely think things can affect you. And someone said it once to me. They're like, it's not, whether you learn from them or not, you learn something by yourself. So I think that's really important. I think whether you see something or learn something from them, it's how you react that will teach you a lot too.
Wow, that's amazing. The reason I asked that is because when I took interest in the subject of creativity also, I figured that it was also something abstract to many people. Many people didn't really know what creativity was, and I didn't really know what creativity was, but I wanted to know it. I wanted to figure it out. I wanted to understand it. And even though I didn't necessarily interview 60 people, but I started doing my digging. And in fact, this conversation is part of my ongoing journey of, removing the onion layers of creativity and knowing it more and more. Because as I talk to people, as I interview people on this podcast and get to hear their experiences, I think I get to understand creativity better. I get to share my perspectives better. So even though I'm not necessarily interviewing 60 people, I think I'm also doing what you're doing in a way. and just talking to you just made me realize that. So wow, that's a very profound discovery. Wow, thank you for that. So do you have any plans? You've done this project now. You've launched it. Do you have any plans? What do you intend to do with it? It's just gonna be like, okay, this is done, I'm going on to the next. What's the next thing out there for you?
it's funny because I know you've written many books, and you think that a person should write books. And it's funny because I've had many people ask me, "Oh, have you thought about another project, another book?" And I'm like, you know what? Being an author is not what my goal is in life. Right now, my goal is to impact the world and teach them about the meaning of wisdom. Now, wisdom, as I said, is not a sexy topic, and
Yeah.
it's a pseudonym for so many things. But my goal is not really to write books and be an author. And do I know what the future holds? I don't. And I have no, it's funny because I'm such a planner. And I had I knew I wanted to be a doctor from the time I was a little kid. But right now, I don't know what the future holds.
Yeah, I'm not necessarily asking if you want to write another book. I'm not necessarily going to like put that pressure on you. I don't think anybody or everybody must write multiple books. I just believe if you have something to say, if you know something, it's good to write it down to preserve that body of knowledge. So I didn't ask that question to like push you into writing another book because I know it can be demanding. But I just feel like, okay, so what next? Do you have plans to maybe help people figure out how to become more wise? Do you have plans to coach people in that area? Do you have plans to maybe go into another area of discovery? I just wanted to know out of curiosity.
So it's funny because I mean, my most of my thoughts are in the book, and
Okay.
I feel like when I was writing each chapter, I put a lot of my own beliefs in there. So my voice is in this book.
Okay.
Do I, in terms of what I foresee for the future, I think my goal is for people to read more of this book or to be touched by it in some way. So not say read, but they can get the audio version soon that's coming out. But just incorporate those elements into their life. Do I? As I mentioned, I know you didn't ask about another book. Other people did, but no, I don't know what's gonna happen. Come 1 year from now, I have no idea.
Wow. Okay, so now let's say there's someone listening out there and the person is struggling to be all they want to be because there are many challenges around them. And one of the principles or elements that you've talked about in your book is resilience. What can you say to that person right now? The person is listening to you right now, probably driving in their vehicles or lying on their bed, frustrated because of the challenges. What can you say to that person that will ignite resilience in them to manifest their gifts, skills, talents in a creative way?
So the idea with resilience is thinking to yourself, as I said, this didn't happen to me, it happened for me. And also in resilience, having a sense of I'm not gonna give up. And I believe giving yourself grace and giving yourself a sense of, oh my God, this is hard and I'm going to be emotionally affected by it. And it's hard, but I'm not going to sit in the emotions. I'm going to sit in fighting it. And I'm not going to give up. I'm going to fight it. And also what helps in all of this is in your mind saying thank you. I know it's weird to say thank you for a difficult situation, but saying thank you is the divine's way of saying, I know you can handle it. And so by you saying thank you, it's kind of like you're like, okay, I'm going to take control of this. So I think that it's step by step. It takes time, and it takes a lot of work, and no one is gonna overcome something overnight, but it takes work, and it takes you saying, okay, I'm gonna do it, I'm gonna overcome it, I'm not gonna fall victim to it. So it's the idea of I'm a warrior, I'm not a victim.
Wow, that's amazing. Thank you so much for that. Do you have any final words that you'd like to put out there for someone listening? Do you have any anything you like to just share with our audience before we bring today's talk to a close?
I'm a scientist. I do like to write. It's very funny because when I first wrote the book, my editor was like, "This is like a pamphlet. This is really short." And so I'm a scientist. I'm not a writer. And so the book is very to the point. And it's an easy read. So I highly recommend whoever pick it up. It won't take you that long. It won't take a long time. It'll take a few days for you to finish it, and then you'll be like, wow, my whole life is different. So it's worth it.
Yeah, I recommend that everyone watching this right now, if you're watching on YouTube or you're listening to this podcast on whatever platform you're listening, I recommend that you take a peek at this book titled Common Wisdom, written by Dr. Laura Gabayan. I hope I pronounced that well. You can correct me if I didn't. But that would be it for today. Thank you all for listening. And thank you, Dr. Laura, for being an amazing guest today. It was so refreshing talking to you, asking you these questions, and learning from your own journey and experience doing this research. I really, really commend the effort, the investment, the time and resources that you have spent into this work, and I definitely wish that this work would give you more opportunities to impact more lives. So thank you for coming on the show.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, and for those listening on the other side, thank you for listening. Definitely talk to someone about this episode. Share with your loved ones and family, and let them know that wisdom is the principal thing. And if they want to develop their wisdom, then recommend the book to them. I'm also going to drop the links to this book on the show notes so that you have the right link when you're ready to get it. Thank you all for joining once again, and see you next week. Till then, have a good one. Bye-bye.